All right, in this video, we're going to learn about substitute chords, and primarily chords that substitute for the dominant. Now, we've learned about tonic, which is your 1 chord. We've learned about the subdominant, which is your 4, and we've learned about your dominant, which is your 5. But that can get really boring. So let me show you what I mean. So you're playing a piece, and we're just going to be in C major. So 1, 4, 5 is what I'm playing, back to 1. Now we'll keep you going for a while, and we can just have some fun with this here. But after a while, it just gets monotonous. And as a composer, we want to be able to mix things up. We want to give it a different color, a different sound to our ears to have some fun with. And that's really where these substitute chords come into play. Now, we're not changing the key structure in any way. We're just using the chords that are within the key structure to stand as fill-ins for the dominant chord, which is the 5 chord. So the first one I'm going to show you is the 2 chord, which is a 2 minor chord, but I want you to hear how it resolves nicely back into 1. So we're going to start with the 1 chord, and now we're going to play a 2, which is a 2 minor, and then back to 1. Now let's play that again. I want you to hear that resolution one more time. All right, so the 2 chord really acts nicely. It's not to substitute at the end of a phrase or or get to a cadence, but throughout a piece, it's a great way to add additional color and additional flavor to your composition. And I know I've used those terms significantly throughout this video series already, but color, flavor, those are really great words to really just help us describe, making it more interesting. The second chord we're going to learn that stands as a really great fill-in for 5 is the 7 diminished. And now a 7 diminished is only found in the major scale, in the major key. In the minor key, it's actually notated with a different chord, which is a 2 diminished. But we'll get to minor keys here in another video. So the 7 diminished is built off of an interesting third system. Okay, so it's not a perfect or an open fifth in the chord. It's actually diminished, meaning it's down half a step. So a diminished chord is built off of 2 minor thirds. So let me just demonstrate. If you were looking at a piano, you'd be looking at the B natural, D, and then F natural, and that actually gives you a very different sound. Now, if we were going to make this a minor chord, we'd actually need to have a minor third, which is your B, D, but we need to have a major third on the back end, which would make that F an F sharp. Hear that difference? Now we're going to play it back diminished. Okay? Now back in tonal history, they called this a tritone, that fifth, which is diminished, and they also called it the devil's tone because it just really stood out as very different than what you expect with a fifth. And in vocal writing, you really avoid the devil tone. You really avoid the tritone because as a vocalist, it's extremely difficult to sing that, at least in tonal music. Now, anything past the 20th century, it's fair game. But when we're talking about classical music, even romantic music, tritone, big no-no. Now, in compositions in general, absolutely, just not in vocal writing, has a very great sound. So we're going to see now how 1 and 7 diminished works really nicely and plays, and you hear this kind of resolution, which is really great. Okay? So here's the 1 chord in C major once again. Do you hear that resolution? And so the 7 chord can really be almost a full dominant chord. It is more of a substitute than the 2, which just really adds a little bit more flavor, but not really having we don't really have to necessarily resolve back to 1, but we can resolve back to 1 in your composition. So let me show you the two examples. So we're going to start with the 1 chord and the 2 minor. Okay, now we're going to hear that in contrast to the 7 diminished. And the 7 diminished actually sounds like it wants to resolve like it were a dominant. Now 5 chord dominant. Ready? And now 1 7 diminished 1. All right, I hope you've enjoyed these substitute chords. So the 2 minor stands in for a dominant, and the 7 diminished also stands in for the dominant chord. The next video, we're going to play a fun piece, and you're going to see how we use the 2 minor chord as a stand-in, but it's not for a resolution. I will see you there.